Back in 2013, I read the book Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and at that time in my life, it was one of the most remarkable books I had ever read. It helped me with my negative thinking, self-confidence, the ability to take action, the ability to not procrastinate, and I started to even get deeper into the self-help searching and seeking. But what I realized was that my seeking over time had become another form of self-avoidance. And we can study and we can try to emulate what we want to be, how we want to see ourselves in the world. But the fact is that it's never going to take the place of actually being, taking risks, trying new things. So many people get into self-help, and it makes sense if you think about it. We start off life with getting good grades, going to school, achieving, getting into college, finding the job, making it a career, getting married, having kids, and then retiring. All we do is move from station to station in life. And most of us get to a point at some part of our lives where we want to know, is there something more? And that's that seeking, and it leads us into this self-help realm. It's really easy for the mind to take over and start to want to do more, to achieve more. But when it comes to self-help, when it comes to self-realization, the more that you try to do, the more that you try to think, the more that you end up running around in circles wondering, who am I? Where am I going? What do I actually want in life? And for me, I was using self-help as almost like a dopamine hit, this life raft I could kind of go back to anytime that I needed to feel good again, to remind me that, hey, there is a deeper purpose and meaning out there. But the problem was that I was using it as a way of escaping, but I didn't even realize it. And so in this short video here, I want to talk about what this is and then how you can actually make a shift into getting out of the self-help trap, as well as being able to use self-help in a way that actually serves you. If you're using self-help to measure performance, to gain achievement, what you're going to find is that since it's not a tangible thing, your ability to understand yourself better, you actually never arrive there. And what ends up happening is people get at times obsessed or even burnt out by getting into the space of self-improvement. And so since the self is unlimited, it can't actually be found, and that's a deep concept. But for the mind, it's always seeking, it's always wanting to find. Simply just being able to slow down and being mindful about what's going on with you can be just as helpful as reading any type of self-help book, watching a self-improvement video, because our minds and our being need to be self-reflective. So getting caught up in a mindset of fixing doesn't actually create the peace that you want. Again, that's all driven by your mind and your need to fix everything and have everything be solved and figured out. What ends up happening is that by letting go, you actually find the peace that you're seeking. We don't become more conscious by stuffing more information into our mind. We become more conscious by being more aware, more present, more allowing in our lives. Most people get to a place where right around the mid part of their life, they start to realize that they have so many things going on. They've got, family, they've got work, obviously. They've got all kinds of things that they're obligated to do, and that causes a emotional stress reaction, right? Like there's only so much we can actually maintain and handle. Like, when's the last time you spent time with your friends? When's the last time you called your mom? And then you got kids, and they need things, and your wife is obviously needing you to be present as well. And so we can very easily get into this need to self-improve, thinking that there's something wrong with us. And actually, there is nothing wrong with us at all. Like, we're just reaching this point in our life where we realize, like, man, I'm really damn busy. I can't fit another thing in here. How can I make my life more manageable and streamlined? Oh, look, there's this thing called self-improvement or self-help. Here's this awesome book. And don't get me wrong, books and tutorials and everything are awesome. They are great catalysts or tools to awaken. But actually, the best catalyst is just by living your life and understanding yourself from an allowing perspective, like actually giving yourself permission, actually giving yourself a little bit of credit, actually giving yourself love. And in many cases, less is more. And I don't mean like don't read or do any self-help work, but what I'm suggesting is that the mindset that we approach this in has to shift. because the more that we strive, the more that we try to, achieve a certain desired result, the less actually present we're going to be, not only to ourselves, but also to our family, to our wife, to any, other people that we have relationships with. The more I can actually slow down and pay attention to what's going on with me, what's coming up for me, the stories in my mind, all that stuff, like the more I can actually like use life as that natural catalyst that it is. So when you're reading a self-help book, you're picking up all these tips. If you're going to see a coach or a therapist, like you can start using those insights in coordinates with life in a way where it actually starts to be helpful. And there was a moment a few years ago, I was reading this book, great book by the way, War of Art, and it's about creative resistance, but it got me thinking about resistance just in general. And I'm reading the book, I'm really tired, don't realize it. I'm like, man, like, why isn't this, I'm usually enjoying this book when I'm reading it. And I'm like, it dawned on me like, oh man, you're resisting allowing your body to rest. Because I'm in this go mode, all the time. I identify goal or problem and solution, and I'm going after that. And maybe I needed just a more of a regular bedtime at that period of my life, and like laying off the coffee. That was my probably realization, like, man, like this self-help, self-improvement isn't always about doing and going and like making it so much of a challenge. It doesn't need to be that way. Something that you can do to practice, see how you can integrate life into your practices. Notice where you can integrate what you've been picking up on, especially with things that are challenging in your day-to-day life, like frustrations, stresses. And I think that will probably help you kind of integrate in a way that's much more efficient and effective than continually going to this place where you're just stuffing your conscious awareness with more and more knowledge and more to do, which is just adding more stress to your current situation. I've got this saying, and anything that's counterintuitive is probably the direction you need to be heading. And especially if we're talking about self-help, self-improvement. So if it feels counterintuitive, it probably is the direction you want to go. So the mind says, if I slow down, I'm not going to be effective. I'm going to not be able to accomplish whatever I'm trying to do. Like, what's the point of doing less? That makes sense from the mind's perspective because it wants to figure things out. It wants to solve things. But it's that place where we're getting overwhelmed that's actually causing the problem. One thing that we can do with that is we just remind ourselves like, hey, I've tried all the things. I've read all the books, or maybe I started trying some things and I'm started reading some books, wherever you're at. What would it cost you? What would it be like to relax into a practice where you become more, curious about, experiments? Like, what would it be like to take a walk? Like, what would it be like to do something much more from an observational standpoint than I used to do? For example, if I draw an analogy with working really hard, but somewhere in me is like this need to kind of create some space so that I can integrate the things that I'm working on, so that I can be back in touch with that creative part of myself. Someone I really like following and reading is Dan Coe. And Dan Coe talks at times about his strict rule that after 2 hours of work, he forces himself to take a walk. Now, I think Dan does about 10,000 steps a day. Not everyone can reach that threshold, but what he's talked about and what makes sense is that when you do that, you allow that space by, in this example, like taking a walk from your work, you're allowing your creativity and parts of your brain to kind of reconfigure in a way so that it gives you back more energy. Could bring even some inspiration or even some motivation in ways, but we got to take these pauses. We can't approach something like as deep and spiritual as self-help and self-improvement with the same mindset that we're actually going to self-help and self-improvement to get away from. And that's a counterintuitive right there. So again, some of these practices are they're super simple. And if your mind's resisting, it might be a good indicator that it's the direction you need to go. If this video landed for you, I'm gonna leave a link in the description. It's a clarity guide. And what you can do with that is go through checklists, kind of see where you're at. There's prompts, AI prompt there too. And it's a good compass point for you to kind of know where you're heading next. Check that out. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.